Welcome, listeners, to Off Over 50 and Fired. Now what with Linda
and Shelley.
So we are moving on to the next phase of interviewing, which is the follow-up. What do you do after you do the interview?
But Linda, before we start, let's kick off with our wine recommendation.
Of course.
This week's wine is Santa Cristina. It's a nice wine from the Tuscan region. It's smooth and goes down oh so easily.
That's right. And those of you who like white wine, you can forget about it. It's all about the red now.
Yes, it is. We're moving into that season.
Okay, now that your interview has been completed, you've got to do the follow-up. And it ain't going to happen on its own. So immediately after the interview, you really should always do a quick self-assessment. You should look for those opportunities that you can improve. Ask yourself, what worked well? Where could you have improved? What questions could you have answered, like in a better way, in a more concise way? And what do you want to do the next time around?
Right. And for some of us who are over 50 and a little forgetful, I think it's really important that you make sure you write this stuff down. You write the shit down because you want to be able to go back to it and prepare better for the next time. So write everything down. And
when should you be responding now to the follow-up from the interview? So now you've completed it. You've done your assessment.
Yep.
What do you do next?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, it's really good if you can get your response out there pretty quickly within the next, the next 24 hours, because you don't want it to get stale and you want to stay top of mind. That's really important. But what we have done is what constitutes good content for that follow-up email. And so we've developed some tips around what is good content.
Yeah, because sometimes a lot of people don't understand, what they should be putting into those emails. They know they should be responding and thanking people and sort of keeping themselves top of mind to that person they just interviewed with. But I think it's difficult for people as to what actually to put in the email itself.
Right. And how do you keep it clear and concise and crisp, and you don't go on and on and on. So that's why we've developed these little tips.
So what's the first tip, Shelley?
The really first one is about using your notes, right? So if you've taken notes during your interview, you want to make sure that you're leveraging those so that you can come back and reinforce something you learned in the interview.
Right. So actually, tip number 2 just builds off of what Shelley just talked about. In order to be able to write that note that's a bit more personalized, you really want to personalize that thank you note, ensure that they remembered you, and you want to use those notes to bring back things that were discussed and talked about in the interview. It could be perhaps the way you discuss a business challenge or an objective. It could be some personal exchange that you may have had with them.
Yeah, and I, just to give an example of something that I did recently is I was going on an interview and it got postponed because the guy's wife was having surgery. Well, I made sure that I just said in my follow-up, how's your wife doing? How are things going? So I wanted to bring in that personal aspect.
Absolutely. It's really good when you can do that because it really is going to bring you top to their mind as you go back and they re-review the different candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the third one is really about being genuine and appreciative, right? So you want to make sure that you're thanking them for their time to bring you in to talk about your expertise.
Right. And as part of that, being genuine, tip number 4 is also making sure that as you're being genuine, that you reinforce the interest and enthusiasm that you have for both the company and the position. It really should be something that says, look, I'm a really great fit for this role and for this company, and that you're excited about the opportunity. And again, it needs to be genuine.
Yep. And the 5th one is really about highlighting key selling points, right? So you want to make sure that you're highlighting your selling points about why, as Linda said, why you're a good fit, and bring up and talk about your experience. Don't be ashamed that you've got a lot of experience to bring to the table. It's important, and that you've got a lot to offer and that you can hit the ground running.
Right. And the last tip number 6, keep your promises. If you said that you would follow up with a piece of sample work, or if they actually requested something from you, make sure that it's part of that email response back to the interviewee. So those are 6 good tips to ensure that you have well-crafted thank you email. However, you may have good contact, but what about if you don't have the contact information for the interviewer?
Right. And you know what, Lynn? Most times you don't have the information, right? So what do you need to do? Do you talk about it? Do you arrange it with a recruiter, or do you make sure you go through your HR and have it be followed up, or forwarded that way? So those are important things to remember. You might not have the contact.
Right. You can also perhaps use LinkedIn, because you can also message someone and respond in that way.
So, Linda, not everybody uses LinkedIn, right? So sometimes folks they go on very randomly. So that's an option, but it shouldn't be your only option. So now that you've completed your interview or your series of interviews, how do you get information on the status of where you are in that whole interview process? What do you need to do? So I think what's really important is if they've provided you with some timing, if they say, we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 weeks, you have to honor that timing. I know for me, I don't want to be emailing them immediately to say, did I get the job?
Yeah, but you don't want to do that. You really want to stick to the timing and wait for whatever they indicated to you, because nobody likes a pesky person.
Do you mean pesty?
Look, Shelley, I knew this was going to come up. Pesty and pesky are both viable options to refer to someone who's bothersome.
Well, I like pesty better.
All right, so you can do pesty, I'll do pesky.
Okay, thank you.
Say that 10 times fast. Pesty, pesky.
I can't. Yeah, it's like really hard. It's like toy boat where you just can't say it 3 times fast. It's impossible.
That's right. It's like the pickle pepper thingy.
Right. Or big black bug.
So one thing to remember, though, in all of this regarding to do with the figuring out where you are in the interviewing process is that you can probably reach out more frequently if it's someone who's external to the organization. So if it's an external recruiter, or possibly even an HR person who's a bit more removed from the group and the function, that you can be a little bit more of a nudge. You can go back and be a little more pesky.
Right. Being a nudge can be okay. And so, one of the things we thought about, but how do you do it in a more appropriate fashion? So we've got, here's a little bit of an example of things you can think about, just maybe basically saying, hope you're doing well. I'm just checking in on the role. It was great to meet with you and the team earlier, and then I'm really looking forward to following up and hearing more on the update. And also, please let me know if there's anything else you want me to do to help move you along in the process.
And so the one thing is that, if you haven't heard back after checking in numerous times, or if you've learned that you actually didn't get the job, you should try to see if you can stay in touch, especially with the hiring manager or some of the peers that you interviewed with, because they could be a very good group of people to begin expanding your network and being able to give you career advice and possibly even link you to a potential opportunity.
So be aware that if you as Linda said, if you got that firm no, and it's really highly unlikely that you're going to do it, just continue to reinforce your interest in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you never know what could happen in the future. There could be a future role that's very well suited for you. Or perhaps you could even be available to do some project work or part-time work that may be available. So you always want to make sure that you end things on a very positive note and keep it open for any potential future opportunity.
Yeah, you want to always try to make sure that you're almost like top of mind.
And you might want to reach out to continue those connections and the network. But if it's a definite no, you have to kind of make sure that you don't get discouraged, that you look at this process as a learning experience, and that you make sure that you're continuing to improve for the next set of interviews or opportunities that you may be contacted.
Right. So don't turn it into where you're going to get a Debbie Downer syndrome or negative Nancy, right? It's a journey. We're not going to get those jobs immediately, but it's important to learn and really gain from that experience. So join us next week and we'll finish up our series on interviewing.
So as always, you can find our OFF Toolkit and our wine recommendations on our website, www.over50andfired.com.
And please give us your feedback and stories, whether it's on interviewing or what other you'd like to see in future upcoming episodes.
Right. And as always, you can go to our website and click on Contact Us or email us at offnowwhat@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.